What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Clap Your Hands podcast, brought to you by Odyssey Sports, brought to you by Sports Radio 94 WIP, and man, brought to you by really the only person not on vacation right now. We got Kyle's off in Australia, James Harden's in China, the hardest working man in the biz, Jack Fritz, stepping in for an emergency. Clap your hands. What's up, buddy?
Tell you what, they never cease to amaze me. The Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, what a well-run franchise you have there, buddy.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, are you just gonna take a Phillies victory lap this whole time? Or are we gonna?
No, because honestly, all jokes aside, this sucks, man.
Yeah.
it just sucks where we're at with this franchise, and because obviously we want the Sixers to win. We love the Sixers. I watch every game, whatever. I know I'm the Phillies guy or whatever, but I care a lot about the Sixers, and it just feels like right now this whole thing is just a rudderless ship. And now it's just I've lost confidence in so much of this franchise to where it's I just want it to be over. I just I'll move on from the process, start over, and the thing that I keep coming back to, Elliot, and I've felt this way for a little bit, is they just don't feel like the Philadelphia 76ers. They just feel like the Sixers. You know what I mean? And that's the big difference, I think, with them in this city versus some of the other teams.
So there's a lot to get into, obviously. We'll get into all of it. There was a report yesterday, which was the jumping off point, I would imagine, for this Harden comment. The Sixers come out yesterday. I should say I say the Sixers, but technically it was a report from ESPN that the Sixers have taken Harden off the trade table. I can only imagine.
Don't even call.
Yeah, I can only. Yeah, don't even call, exactly. So that
He's
comes
our
out yesterday.
guy.
Yeah. And then I wake up this morning all excited for joint practice, all excited for my messy game on Tuesday. And James Harden, a clip in China of him straight up saying, Daryl Morey is a liar. I will never play for an organization that he's a part of. And then he flips it, brings it back. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be part of an organization that he is a part of. So, lot to unpack there. But I will start with where you started. And it's how I feel this morning, to be completely honest. So, I know you're not on the pod all the time, but we do a lot of WIP together. And you know that all offseason, I have defended this team. Well, everyone's been ripping them. I've been saying, look, they've accomplished a lot. They get to the second round all the time. That's not something to completely gloss over. Joel Embiid just won MVP. James Harden's much better than I won't give him credit for. I really have defended this team. This was the first point for me where it felt like a breaking point. A breaking point of grow up. Is this seriously what they're doing again? There was legitimate things to be excited about last season that could be building points. Maxey took a big step. Harden, Embiid, and Maxey had their first kind of true postseason run. They lost, I think, a good series to the Celtics. And it's just all blown up. And all offseason, I've had this feeling of, look, I know Harden wants to leave, but he's friends with Joel. He's at the white party with Michael Rubin, all these things. And then you see this video, and I'm just reminded of, maybe everybody else is just correct. All this defending of the Sixers, we have all these dumb leaks from Daryl Morey. First of all, why are you leaking you're no longer trading him? That's childish. What are we doing here? It doesn't matter. He's not really off the trade block. So all you're doing is poking James Harden. That's all you're doing. By leaking that, all you're basically saying is, James, I'm not trading you, and you're getting him upset. And then this is the result of that. James Harden comes out and calls him a liar, and it's an embarrassment. It is a straight up embarrassment for the Sixers. And if their whole plan is to sign free agents next offseason, guess what? Good luck with that, because you guys look like the laughingstock of the NBA. James Harden is calling your GM, the GM that you're paying $10 million a year to clean all this up, to be the guy that's supposed to be one of the best in the NBA, to be the guy that has a good relationship with James Harden. He's being called a liar in front of everybody. What's Joel thinking right now? If you're Joel Embiid, what are you thinking as you're seeing the best player you've ever had play with you call your GM a liar? If you're Joel, or if you're Tyrese Maxey, the Sixers have reportedly said, look, we're going to take care of you next offseason. That's exactly what just happened with James Harden. I don't know what Tyrese and James Harden relationship is like, but I'll tell you this. If they have a good relationship, this is terrible, because now Maxey's going to sit there and go, why should I wait a full year? You just said that to James Harden, it seems at least, and now he's not getting paid. You said to James Harden in basically a joint statement the day of the first day of free agency that we're going to try to trade James Harden. Now you're saying you're not going to trade him. So what's really happening here, it's embarrassing. All these things are true. And I completely understand every Sixers fan that's called me a fool for defending the team. But that aside, to what you said, Jack, I think is so true. at the end of the day, we all want the Sixers to be good. This is not like none of us benefit from anything that's happening right now. Not the fans, not James Harden, not Daryl Morey. And it's embarrassing to wake up to this.
Well, it just stinks because, like, you're seeing two grown men, like, kind of having this falling out right in front of us. And, I know everyone's mad at James Harden. And it's okay to be mad at James Harden. But at the same time, like, look at everything that Daryl Morey has kind of done to him in the last, year. I mean, year and a half, whatever. Like, when he signed a contract and he left $15 million on the table or whatever, which they were obsessed with putting out, that he left money on the table.
Biggest PR campaign ever.
But that was obviously designed because it felt like it was like a handshake agreement. And it was like a wink, like, you do this now and I'll take care of you next offseason. James Harden, for as bad or as annoying as he was in the playoffs, even though he did have some great games, but like he was annoying in game 6, 7. He averaged 20 and 10 and got back to an all-star kind of level of play. And I think obviously he's like, okay, well now this Daryl Morey's going to max me out. Like, this is what I do. Like, it's fine. And then Daryl Morey doesn't. He basically cuts off all communication with James Harden, the guy that put him on the map, by the way, which, like, if you're James Harden, you're like, hold on, who the hell's Daryl Morey? Like, I made Daryl Morey. Like, I turned Daryl Morey into this, like, $10 million a year GM. It wasn't the other way around. All he did was go get an undervalued asset from the Thunder and let me cook, essentially, for 10 years. Like, that's all he really did. That's all he really did. And then what happened this offseason, which is the whole, everyone's like, well, James Harden opted in. He opted in because he wanted to get traded.
Yeah.
Like, what do we, like, it's, I just think that we can be mad at everyone. Like, Morey has screwed this up colossally, and James Harden is a huge baby. And the only people that are losing right now are us, are the people that care, and the people that wanted to see the team go play well. Like, they are such a, and it goes all the way up to the top, too. I mean, John, where is he? I mean, now everything's kind of crumbling here. And it doesn't, like, this guy's doing, like, thank you, Josh Harris things in Washington, and the fans are like,
got the game ball.
Oh my gosh. It's just, they are such, I just want them to go away. Like, the vibes in the city are so good. And the fact that we have to spend a lot of time today discussing this they're just the worst.
To what you said about them going away. This is something I have felt all offseason at every stupid tweet they put out. Every time Joel puts out a tweet. Every time Daryl Morey puts out a tweet.
Oh, the crumble cookies.
Every time.
Tobias Harris
exactly,
thing.
Yes. Now, I'll tell you this. So we're recording this at 9:15 in the morning. There is a soccer game at 3 o'clock. So get ready for a Joel tweet. Something like Manchester United's playing. It's going to put like United or whatever. Like we will get a Joel tweet today. I would be shocked if we don't.
Great.
But
Awesome.
that's what's been frustrating for me is I have, again, defended the team, and I believe rightfully so. I still believe everything I've said, but like, this is where I can understand why fans, like, I've never seen the city this mad at the Sixers. Like, you talk to fans every single day. Your show, 2 to 6 every day, 94 WIP. Everyone tune in. Fritz at 6 as well. But you talk to fans all day. Like, right, wrong, whatever. Fans feel how they feel. And right now, stuff like this is not helping them get back into good graces of the city. Like, I don't know what the roster is going to look like night one. I don't know what, if James is going to be there, frankly, if Joel is going to be there. But it would not surprise me if this team catches some boos at their introduction, like of the player introduction the night up. Like, it just
maybe give them what about a standing ovation? Would
what about
that
a
help?
standing ovation? Yeah.
Would that help?
The movement started. Stand for Joel and James.
Well, and here's my problem is obviously everything going on right now. I think it's naive to think that this is just going to go away and be fine.
Well, and that's what I used to think, which sucks the most. I used to think that James was going to report to camp. He's friends with Joel. Everything will all be good. Clearly not. Like, everyone that made the fat suit jokes and all the, like, this is what he does. Like, yeah, this is step one of that. Like, this is straight up step one of him causing a massive scene whenever they start training camp.
Yeah, and the bigger problem to me is now, where do they go from here? Like, I think this feels like it's trending towards, they get James Harden out of here. He ends up in Los Angeles. You get, I don't know, you probably don't even get Terrence Mann at this point. Like,
and honestly, who cares? Like, I like Terrence Mann, but like, I'm not going to be like, good job, Daryl. He did it. Morey season if they get Terrence Mann. Like, it's not going to be a good trade.
But you do trade the Clippers, make it all happy, make this whole thing go away. The problem for me now is if their whole plan is we need to have as much cap space as possible heading into next summer. These James Harden comments calling Daryl Morey a liar. We know NBA like I know we view James Harden as a clown. Most of the city views James Harden as a clown. He's still a top 75 player of all time that I think that is
very popular.
Is well respected in the league. And I don't. And these comments about Daryl Morey, like, what players are going to want to sign up for that? Like, they have to do a big turnaround here, at least PR wise, of trying to get or just move on from Daryl Morey, because I don't. Like, this is the NBA more than any other sport is about the players. It's a player league, like player empowerment. They move around, whatever. When they want to go, they kind of go. If that's the case, who's signing up to come play for a guy who was just called by one of the best players of all time a liar? Like, that's not a good spot to be in.
And I'll be interested to see if the Sixers respond today, like what their response. I mean, I'd imagine it's gonna be some version of like, we never promised this to Harden, blah blah blah. But let's kind of go through the timeline really quickly to say what we believe happened. So last offseason, like, do you think the Sixers promised him money? Because while we can sit here and go, James Harden's a bit of a loose cannon, he's forced his way out of 2 teams. This is nothing new for him. Like, he turned down the extension with the Nets. He forced his way to the Sixers. It was forced his way to the Sixers from the Nets. Mm-hmm. And then he takes less money. Everyone said it. Like, whether I thought it was silly at the time, everyone made it clear he took less money. So if you look, like, pretty consistently, his actions have been that of somebody that is hearing through back channels, I am going to get paid by the Sixers. Why do you force your way to the Sixers if you don't think Morey's going to pay you? Why do you turn down extension from the Nets if you don't think you have that money coming from the Sixers? Now, the weird point with this is, and this is something I'm sure the Sixers will point to, why then in December does James Harden start the whole Houston really wants me thing? So my question for you would be, is like, we kind of think through this. Do you think Daryl promised him money? And if he did, why did James Harden start to leak rumors that he was going to go to the Rockets?
Well, I think the promised money thing is interesting. But I also think that, I could see him taking advantage of James Harden not having an agent and trying to use his relationship as like, this is before he had an agent, right?
Right, now he has an agent. Yeah, at the time.
Now he has an agent. So I think, I don't know, obviously I don't know if they promised him, but I do think that there was a wink-wink thing there. I thought the Houston thing, I mean, maybe he just started getting the sense in the middle of the season, like, we're probably not going to pay you, pal. And then he tried to, create some kind of market out there. And again, a bad sign for Harden that they signed Fred VanVleet to 100. It's not a good sign. So I think this whole thing's been posturing to try to get the Sixers to balk and pay. And I just don't think he wanted to do it. And like, on one hand, I'm happy that Daryl is at least seeing the light. And being like, okay, I can't pay this guy. Like, he's going to sink my franchise. Like, for a guy that essentially had made his career off trading for James Harden a couple times, like, to be able to be like, probably not the smart thing to do for this franchise. I think that's good. The only issue is what it creates image-wise for Daryl Morey and what it makes the Sixers look like, how they're going to disrespect one of the best players. Like, again, it's almost like you have to move on from Morey to rebuild your image. Because I would be very surprised if an NBA player is like, sign me up. But then you start thinking about, okay, well, how does it beat? Like, it's just, there's so many aspects of this thing, and it keeps just pointing back to the Morey thing.
So I'll start by saying, like, I do believe that James was promised some type of money. Yeah. All right, let me an Eagles reference in here real quick. When the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, right? They swore up and down this had nothing to do with Carson. They called Jalen a backup. They said he'll never take the job. You're foolish to think he'll ever take the job. We'll never know the honest to God truth. Did they draft Jalen and then things fell apart and they lucked into him? Or did they draft him thinking Carson was going to fall apart? Some things in sports that are really important, we just will never know the honest to God truth. With this right here, I don't think we'll ever know the honest to God truth of what Daryl said to James Harden, unless he was dumb enough to put it in a text message or an email, and James Harden now has this over his head. Now, if Daryl knew that he had that, you would think he would probably act accordingly. But regardless, my point is this. We might never know what was actually said and what the true intentions of what was said. But everyone is lying to themselves if they don't think James Harden is acting like someone who was promised a ton of money and is now having that money take away. Like
Yeah.
maybe Daryl mismanagement where he did, let's say he said something like, hey, look, I want to sign PJ Tucker and Daniel House. We can't do it. Take a little bit less now. Next year, the new CBA will be in effect, and we'll really be able to take care of you then. And that's not a promise. It's not a written thing. But let's be honest, like everyone in each of their own walks of life. Let's pretend your boss says to you, hey man, can't give you a raise right now, but I'll tell you what, next year, like I got you. Like, I can't, but I got you. And then he didn't. Like, how would you react to that? How would you feel if a year later you're not getting that money? So did James Hart, first of all, he had a better year last year than he did the year before. So that is worth taking into consideration.
Well, he reestablished himself last year, I felt like,
he was almost an all-star.
And I think heading into the playoffs, I think people were like, all right, like, I think that's why the reaction's so harsh right now, Elliot, is because I think people bought in again. And I think that James Harden gave us a reason to believe again because, he led the league in assists. He was, like, being a good kind of sidekick to Joel Embiid. I mean, like, and I think that's what's being missed here. Like, we've all been in this situation. Like, we've all talked to bosses that are like, yeah, listen, right now, I understand, whatever. Just wait it out. Like, that's a wink. Yeah. And if it doesn't happen in your life, you're mad too. Yeah. Like you're 100% mad. It's how it works.
The other thing people will say, and what we should get into is, well, then why do you opt in? Right? Like there's a lot of, very popular tweets on Twitter right now. Everyone getting those likes and retweets. I'm not mad at it. Go get them. Where it's like James Harden, like, I don't want to play for the Sixers. James Harden opted in to play for the Sixers. But here's the deal. Like, if we want to be honest about this, when he opted in, the statement that came out was saying the Sixers are going to trade him. Like, when he opted in, everyone, including me, all the fans, celebrated. Why? Because it was James Harden is not going to play for the Sixers. The overarching feeling was James Harden is gone. Now, you could say, like, they did try to trade him. They did. By all reports, they've talked to the Clippers. And I don't blame Daryl Morey for asking for a ton. But ultimately, James opted in with the expectation he would not play for the Sixers. And so for Daryl to release a statement or, maybe release, talk to ESPN and say that, like, of course I'd be pissed if I was James Harden. James Harden was told by the team, and it seems pretty clear, and I'm pretty sure Morey has said this on the record, that they would work with him to try to find a trade. That is not like, again, put yourself in a real life situation here. Imagine your boss said to you, and it's tough because you don't really trade, but like, let's say he said to you, hey, I'm going to try to get you to the Denver office, or I'm going to try to get you to our sister company in Boston. And then you're hearing Boston wants you, blah, blah, blah. And then your boss like, actually, I'm not going to do it. Like, of course you would be mad. We could all sit here and talk about, well, he's not giving up Terrence Mann or wait for Paul George or all these things. Bottom line is this. James Harden doesn't care what they get back into trade. James was told he was going to be traded. Daryl's not doing it. Should James bite the bullet and come in? Maybe he should do that. He's getting paid $35 million, like all those things. But ultimately, I just think everyone looks bad in this situation. I can't get behind this is James Harden being annoying. This is blah, blah, blah. Like it's all of them. I think Daryl is just as much to blame, if not more.
And the thing that I keep going back to is like, I don't want James Harden here anyway.
See, but I do. Like that's.
I know you do. I know you do. But like, I don't want him here anyway. So like, I'm not going to be mad at James Harden for wanting to get out. Good, great, whatever.
Right.
Go ahead.
Remember, that was the reaction when the tweet came out. Remember,
I know
that was so. Everyone doing revisionist history on this whole like, oh, like why'd he opt in then? Because everyone thought he was gone. No one thought he was going to play here.
And that's why. By the way, I want to break this down because I watched the video like 10 times and I'm so confused. Why did he say it twice? Like I couldn't tell if he was like trying to set up a.
He's a showman. Come on.
No, I know, but
like I would think.
Here's what I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if they were setting up like a produced video, he wanted to get the cut right. Like it was like we got
100%. I definitely
because like the video, like the videos that all came out today were like just on people's phones that they just sent over. Like it looked like he was trying to do like a professional, like all right, cut, scene, out. You know what I mean?
The funniest part is how Shams has the video with the direct quote. Like, that video taken was the video from someone on Harden's team. And that they were like, here's exactly what he said. And the funniest part is, so James Harden's in China. First of all, China, not the biggest fan of Daryl Morey. I would imagine this probably went over relatively well there. But he's probably doing some like basketball camp where he's going to stand up there and talk about like, I don't know, playing basketball and how much, whatever. And then he just comes out. Imagine being like a reporter or a kid at that camp. And he just comes out. He's like, hey, we're going to talk about basketball today, but real quick, Daryl Morey is a liar and I'll never play for the organization again. All right, who wants a free pair of shoes?
Who wants to? Let's go warm up. Let's go stretch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other part of this. Like, his agent has mismanaged this too. It's three people that are supposed to be good at their jobs that are handling it poorly. And that's what sucks. Like, that's what sucks. So a few more questions before we wrap this up, because I know you got me. Look, we have busy days. The Eagles are practicing. You got a show to produce. And the Phillies, I guess they suck again. No, actually, they lost.
They're off today. They're off today.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank God.
That's a well-run franchise.
The Sixers day, yeah. So here's the two questions I think have to be asked before we wrap this up. One, what do you do now? If you're Daryl Morey, do you just be like, you know what, man? I don't want this anymore. I'll trade you to LA. You take back Norman Powell, Robert Covington, and whatever, and just like end it. Do you end this today? Or if you're Daryl Morey, do you dig your heels in even further and actually expect this guy to come to camp and then go through the whole thing of like, he's not practicing, so, he's breaching his contract. Like, what would you do?
It's so bad. It's so bad.
I think it could be worse than the Ben Simmons.
Because Ben's not. I think Ben's just
didn't talk. Ben was just quiet and just. I think
he's always just chilling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I think
good point. Yeah.
I don't think Harden's chilling. The first thing I would do is if they can find Josh Harris. Now I don't know if they can.
You're mad at Josh about this.
But it's kind of similar to what happened between AI and Larry Brown. Because I think that AI lost trust in the organization when he was on the trading block, and Pat Croce has talked a lot about before the 2001 season, before AI went and won the MVP, and obviously they had the run, that they had a sit down conversation with Larry Brown and Allen Iverson,
Pat Croce, yep.
and they were able to, kind of hash out their issues. The question is this thing so far gone that they can't do that they can't have a real conversation, that they can't even be in the same room together? Because these are two guys that have been, very close for a long time. I mean, Daryl Morey has a painting of James Harden in his house. So, like,
I wonder what that painting's up to.
Yeah, seriously. The first thing I would do is I would just try to get these guys in a room and like see, like, you gotta decide if they're gonna be able to work it out before you give them away for like the C package from the Clippers. Like, I don't really want them back, but I think if you want to have your best chance to win a championship and you're Josh Harris and you don't really care about winning, you care about selling tickets in your arena. I think that's what he should do. What I think's gonna happen is that he's gonna be a Clipper, and it's gonna get so untenable here that they're gonna have to take whatever they can get. But after that, again, you have to get a gauge on if any star is gonna want to come here and see what the temperature is like for Daryl Morey around the league. And if it comes out that players are avoiding Philadelphia because of James Harden's comments today, then you have to move on from Daryl Morey. Yeah. Because next summer becomes, if your whole goal here is to maximize the Joel Embiid window, you can't miss next summer. I mean, next summer is when your max slots finally open up. So I think there's a lot that has to be done here. But the first thing I would do is get those guys in a room and see if they can't, hash out their issues.
So the Iverson Larry Brown thing is a really interesting comparison, because obviously the documentary just came out this summer, and when that whole thing was going down, I was probably like 12 or 13, so I wasn't like, what were you, like 7 probably, I guess, when this was, so we weren't analyzing this as we do now, like all the dynamics of it. The Iverson Larry Brown thing, if it happened today, would end with Allen Iverson on another team or Larry Brown fired. I do not think in today's world they could have a meeting during practice where they yelled and shouted and did all these things and then have it work out. Remember, Larry stepped away from the team for a few days. So when we did a pod earlier this summer with the person that did the documentary, she agreed. Like, yeah, Iverson would have been gone. So while, yes, you were right, maybe get them in a room, I just don't know if I would believe it or that it would work. Like, first of all, Daryl's the one that decides if they trade him or not. So that's an interesting dynamic for the meeting. And frankly, like, I just don't trust that even if James says to Daryl, all right, I don't even know how he could say this, but okay, you know what? I think you lied to me and cost me, tens of millions of dollars, but I'll forgive you and we'll keep it moving. The first time things go bad, he's going to ask out. And then you go into a season with someone that you think could ask out at any minute. And I don't think this can be emphasized enough. The Sixers have a new head coach and a chance to build like a new thing here, right? So do you really want the beginning of the Nick Nurse era to be training camp where James Harden's off in the weight room pretending his ankle hurts and like everyone's just watching him while you're trying to run a practice? Like, that's an incredibly terrible way to start this. So Well, I have been in the camp of, obviously, like, they have a chance to win with James Harden. If they have him, I think they are legit title contenders. Hold on for another piece. I'm also a terrible negotiator. So there's a part of me that's like, just move on from this guy, man. Just trade him
Well,
today. If they trade
because
him today, I bet fans will be like, thank God. And maybe
yeah,
you get some of the fans back.
yeah. Well, the thing is that the only way they're going to win is if James Harden is bought in,
Yeah,
and
100%.
like he's not going to come in and like Nick Nurse is going to be like running hardcore defensive
Right.
practices,
Exactly, yeah.
and then James Harden's out there like getting over
Breaking
screens and
down
like
the huddle. Yeah.
yeah,
Here we
like
go, Sixers.
yeah, he's trying to like break up a pick and roll or whatever on
Right.
defense. Like he's just we I think we know what
I think you have to trade him.
they
That's
have
where
to
I've
trade. I
fallen
mean,
out on it.
that's where I mean it's over.
And it sucks that you're not but like honestly, man, like Norman Powell can shoot. Like here I go talking myself in.
No, I love you're talking to the right
Powell's
guy.
pretty good.
I love Norman Powell.
Good 3-and-D guy. And then at least like you do have the cap space. So I don't know. But the last question is,
Yeah.
do you think this increases the chance Joel asks out for the start of the season? Because ultimately
This
future,
season?
like anything could happen. Like, do you think Joel, and I know Joel knew that James was mad, he knew everything and all this. Like, there is a public facing part of this where Joel wakes up, sees this quote from China from James Harden, is probably like, what am I doing with my career here? Like, I am arguably the best player in the NBA. Yes, better than Jokic. And I'm like waking up to seeing my number 2 guy like take shots at my GM when my last GM was taking shots on me on Twitter. Like, you do wonder if like whether we can rationalize it or not when the breaking point is for Joel.
I believe he's fine. Like I think he's just like I think he's just cool. I think I'm not sure the whole championship thing. I think if he wins one, he's happy. But I think he likes being now. The one thing that could change here is the city's turning like really on Joel Embiid,
Yes,
which we're kind of getting there. And then he's like, all right, well then
I think we're past that. Yeah, people are very mad at him.
Where I think that's when he would ask out. But I think as long as he's the star of the team, he gets to beat Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, and I think he wants to play here as long as he can. And I think the only thing that turns this for Joel is that the city really, really gets on him. I mean, they're getting on him now, and but it's almost calmed down because now it feels like the ire is more on James Harden and Daryl and Josh Harris and whatever. Whereas, like, I think the spotlight's been off Joel Embiid. I think the only way he really asks out is if the city really turns on him. And that's where it's going to be interesting because if James Harden doesn't come back next year and it's Norman Powell and Robert Covington and whatever, like, the expectations aren't going to be a championship. So I don't think people are going to be like crushed if they lose in the second round next year. I'll just be like,
yeah. Although I can kind of talk myself into like a Joel, Maxey takes the step. Role players, Nick Nurse. The East isn't that good. Like I'm already getting there.
I mean, there's the reason why I would do the Clippers trade is because the Clippers don't. I mean, I don't know, they're so weird. But if you could just get like a collection of guys and then next year try to get a star in here. I mean, there's a path there. There's a path. Because the problem with the Sixers the last couple of years for me is that like they just didn't have the depth around those guys. Mm-hmm. Like they just had the stars, it's fine. But the NBA now, it's like you gotta have 8 competent players.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Celtics and the Nuggets. Like they had deep rotations. But what you said, I think is interesting, and also maybe a good way to kind of bring this full circle. Like you started this by saying it just sucks. It sucks for fans. It sucks to see this. It sucks if you want the Sixers to be good. And I think that's probably how Joel feels, ultimately. Do I think Joel wants to leave Philadelphia? No. I think Joel wants to stay in Philadelphia. I think he feels a genuine commitment to the franchise. I think he wants to win here. But I also think that, like Sixers fans, he's probably close to just being fed up with this. Like, he's fed up with waking up and seeing, like, all this drama going on that, frankly, most of the times he has nothing to do with. Like, the tweets aggravate me, and he said the thing about, maybe I'll win somewhere else or whatever. But for the most part, 80% of the drama, if not 90%, since Joel's been here, has not been because of Joel. Like, he has handled himself well. He's played really well. And so I think Joel probably feels like a lot of fans feel right now, which is, like, mad, but also, like, I see all these people saying, well, I'm not going to watch Sixers games and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's all be honest. We're going to follow the team. We're going to watch them. Joel's going to be here, and everyone's just going to be frustrated. And it just sucks where, to your point, like, the Eagles are starting up. Phillies are turning it around. The Union are the best team in the city, and we still have to deal with all this Sixers stuff. So, but one thing we don't have to be upset about is shout out to Jack for coming on the pod, man. Very appreciative. Kyle is off ripping American Airlines in Australia. Thankfully, he's made it there. It looks like he's having a great time. Happy he made it there.
Very jealous.
Stuff.
Very jealous.
But you were nice enough to come on. So for those that for some reason you're living under a rock and you don't know where to find Jack, obviously Jack Fritz on Twitter, but also High Hopes, the best Phillies podcast in the game, and obviously on WIP all the time. So Jack, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Of course. I mean, listen.
I will text you in a few minutes, I'm sure. We will keep talking about this all day.
When there's big news, we're your guys.
The basketball guys right here, me and Jack.
I love, dude, again, I mentioned at the beginning, like, I love the Sixers. It's just like, this sucks, man. Like, it's just, they are ruining what is a good time in the city right now.
Yes.
It's just what they do.
Well, the good news is the Eagles practice tonight, so this will wipe this all under the rug. But
for sure.
Thanks again to everyone that's listening as well. We super appreciate it. I always say I appreciate everyone that listens, but especially the off-season pods this late. It means a lot to me that you guys take the time out of your day to listen to the pod. So until next time, or until more breaking news comes, this has been Clap Your Hands, brought to you by Odyssey Sports. Make sure you download that app, get all the episodes first. And Jack, I'll talk to you in a little bit, man.
See you, buddy.